Say what you want about them, but over the last decade or so, this company has done an incredible string of acquisitions that's truly inspiring and financially has been incredibly successful. And I want to contrast their super powerful acquisition strategy with another acquisition that's very well known in the same industry that was a complete disaster. And I want to look at the psychology behind why those deals worked and why they didn't. What deal am I talking about? Disney. Disney, over the last decade, has done an incredible string of acquisitions. They started out with a beautiful piece of money-making infrastructure that you could basically call a money machine. Disney has parks, cruises, rides, toys, games, streaming, anything imaginable. They have this incredible engine that they can use to monetize and add value to intellectual property. And they can use that engine to extract a huge amount of value from any given piece of IP. And they've done so for a lot of unique IP, whether it's Frozen, whether it's the classic Disney stuff like Mickey Mouse, things like Aladdin, Lion King, etc. They've done a tremendous job of developing some really good IP, and they've built this incredible amount of infrastructure around monetizing it. But they didn't stop there. They went out and used mergers and acquisitions as a strategy to add new intellectual property that they could then run through that money machine and create billions of dollars in incremental revenue and profits, which is staggering when you look at it. Some people may not like what they've done with the IP. Even as a Star Wars fan and somebody who's consumed a lot of the new content, all of it's not amazing, but from a business standpoint, they've created billions of additional value by using this strategy. So they went out, they bought Pixar, they ran Pixar through the money-making machine. They went out and they bought Lucasfilm. They ran Lucasfilm's IP and assets, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, etc., through the money machine. Then they went out and bought Marvel. They ran Marvel through the money machine really hard. There's an insane amount of Marvel movies. They're basically constantly coming out, but they're creating billions in upside for Disney. They didn't have to change anything. They took the existing knowledge, skill sets, and infrastructure that they had around unlocking value, and they ran these new acquisitions through that structure. Let's contrast that with one of the most famous merger blow-ups in history, which is AOL's acquisition of Time Warner. Same industry, basically. Two media companies, one buying the other around a similar thesis of trying to take content and intellectual property and run it through their money machine. The reason AOL bought Time Warner originally is because they viewed themselves as the gateway to the internet, and they wanted to have all of Time Warner's content to be able to monetize it with their digital platform. But didn't work out. It's actually known as one of the greatest flubs of all time in the mergers and acquisitions war stories. People talk about it as one of the biggest failed deals in history. Let's look at some of the psychology lessons around why those deals were successful, why they failed, and how you can apply them when you're looking to buy a business. Looking at these two case studies, Disney, which has been an incredible financial success, Time Warner and AOL, which was basically a disaster, has led me to ask the question, why are some acquisitions super successful and why are others not? There's lots of reasons. One of the most interesting is psychology. Human psychology is incredibly important. It's one of the most misunderstood and most powerful forces in business. Why? Because in business, no matter what you're doing, you're always interacting with humans. And humans are inherently quirky, irrational, make strange decisions sometimes. And the key to being a better negotiator, to getting deals over the finish line, to buying businesses, is really understanding human psychology, which is an incredibly important thing. And a lot of them are completely neglected by most business schools when they teach how to actually interact with other people. As a result, I went out and spent almost a decade of my life interviewing some of the world's top psychologists, researchers, scientists, authors, and thinkers around influence and human behavior, solely so that I could use all of those lessons to get better at buying businesses. I want to share with you some of the biggest psychology lessons that I've uncovered and how they apply to doing deals. One of the single most important concepts to understand around buying businesses is the concept of rapport, building trust and a relationship with the other party that you're doing the deal with. And this is just as important whether you're the buyer or the seller. Rapport can usually be the bridge or the glue that helps a deal cross the finish line and helps navigate some of the inevitably tricky components of doing a deal. Every deal has some element, some time, something that happens where the deal gets pushed to the brink, it's about to die, or there's something that really needs to get sorted out. And if you don't have a strong rapport with the person who's on the other side of the table, you risk blowing the entire deal up. In fact, I'll give you 2 short stories to show you just how much I value rapport and spend a consistent amount of time and energy investing heavily in it. One, I had a call with a cold lead a couple weeks ago. They came in, booked a call with me, and it was about potentially buying or investing in their business. Never met this person, cold, never spoken to them before. We spent the first 9 minutes discussing breakfast meat. We actually spent 9 minutes talking about pork roll. It's a regional food in the Philly, Jersey area. I lived up there for a while. He's from New Jersey. And we had a banter, joking conversation around breakfast meat for 9 minutes, which then helped build a deeper relationship. Another story, I flew out to visit a large plastic injection molding business in the rural Midwest several months ago. We flew in, we spent about a half day at their business, touring the factory, getting to know them, all this kind of stuff. When we went and visited, we went straight to their boardroom as soon as we arrived at their office, and we spent the first almost 2 hours of our meeting going deep and talking about fishing, talking about the owner's family, talking about his son's recent wedding, talking about Lake Michigan, all kinds of different stuff. We literally didn't touch on business for almost 2 hours, just sat there joking, talking, getting to know each other. That's laying deep foundations so that as that deal progresses, we have a much better and stronger relationship with them. Finding little things that you can know or learn about the person at the other end of the table. What are their hobbies? What are their interests? What are the things they like? Interjecting small anecdotes like that can be super helpful as you build a bridge, build a relationship, and build a connection with the person who's on the other side of the table. I am a huge believer in investing extremely heavily in rapport. I had a deal that was on the absolute brink of blowing up last year. And the only reason it didn't is because I had a very good rapport and a multi-year relationship that I'd built with the seller on the other side of the table. One of the most interesting places to borrow from to build and improve your ability to develop rapport with people are some of the most extreme situations you can imagine. I love looking at things like FBI hostage negotiation, counterterrorism, military strategies, etc., because these are scenarios where influence is a life or death decision. A hostage negotiator has no room for error, and so the strategies they use are some of the most proven and powerful strategies for doing things like building rapport with people. As a result, there's a couple specific things you can do to build rapport with somebody. First is to focus on active listening. This is listening to understand what the other person is trying to do, what they're saying, and what their goals and motivations are. 2 is focusing on understanding what they're doing. You want to understand the other person, put yourself in their shoes. You don't necessarily have to agree with them to understand, but understanding them is super important to framing and negotiating an effective deal. 3, it really helps to paraphrase or parrot back things that people say to you. By paraphrasing or rephrasing something, you're demonstrating your understanding and creating an opportunity, if there's a miscommunication, for you to bridge that gap or clarify something that could end up being a big issue if it's misunderstood or not communicated clearly on the front end. 4, asking questions. As simple as it sounds, asking questions is the foundation of building a relationship and building rapport with somebody. If you ask the right questions, even something as simple as their hobbies and interests and their family, those things can be the basics or the building blocks for a really robust relationship. But asking questions about the deal itself is also super important. You want to really deeply understand what the seller is trying to accomplish, what they want to do, what their goals are, and why they want to do a deal or why they're interested in talking to you as an investor or a buyer in the business. If you don't understand those things, you're gonna sabotage yourself and miss critical opportunities to build a really workable deal structure that not only meets your goals as a buyer, but also meets their goals as a seller. And solving for that is another one of the most critical things in doing a deal. Deals that are oriented towards and built around solving the seller's needs, goals, wants, and desires are the best deals, the easiest deals to get closed, and the most flexible and durable deals in terms of negotiation, maneuverability, etc. If you orient yourself towards finding a deal that meets the seller's needs, and the first piece of that is understanding what the seller's needs are, you're setting yourself up for success. And a friend of mine once used this example that a lot of private equity buyers are basically like Revolutionary War soldiers. They walk up, they just stand there up, shoot, right? There's no nuance, there's no subtlety. You're just firing offers over without any understanding of what the other side wants or needs or what they're trying to accomplish. Virtually every deal I've ever done, especially the deals that had the most creative financing, the most unique elements, and were the best deals, all entailed a deep understanding of what the seller wanted to accomplish, why they were doing a deal, and I built the deal around meeting their needs. A related concept to this is something that I use for every transaction, which is understanding the Venn diagram of what your goals are and what the seller's goals are, and looking at the overlap between those two things. As long as there's enough overlap between what you want to accomplish and what the seller wants to accomplish, there's room to do a deal. And if there's not, that's okay too, but you have to understand first what everybody wants to achieve and then look at the overlaps between those things. If there's enough overlap on that Venn diagram, there's an opportunity to get a deal done. Let's talk about another one of the most important strategies to doing deals, which is managing your emotions. There's a couple key things you have to understand to manage emotions effectively. Not only yours, but also the other person you're doing the deal with, because in any deal where millions of dollars are on the line, emotions can run very high. And not having a really strong grasp on your emotional skill sets and emotional intelligence can set the deal up to failure or leave the deal like a powder keg that's about to explode. To give you a sense of how important it is to manage emotions and close a deal, a friend of mine closed a deal last year, and on the closing day, the seller of the business had a heart attack and died. To say that the stakes in these deals are massive, millions of dollars on the line, people's livelihoods, the emotions can run very, very high. There's a great concept called the emotional intelligence quadrant that showcases the 4 key elements of emotional intelligence. The first is the concept of self-awareness, and having an awareness of yourself and your own emotions is critically important to understanding what you're going through, how you're feeling, and how others are interacting with you. The next is self-management. This is first you have to understand what your emotional state is, then you have to develop the tools and resources to manage it. And I'll tell you a couple great resources for managing your emotions here in a second, especially in high stakes situations. So those are the self components. Now we have the other components. First, we have social awareness, which is awareness of what other people are thinking and feeling. You have to be able to read cues, body language, understand how people are feeling and what they're doing. And then you have relationship management, which is managing the emotions of others. These are the 4 core pillars based on what you see and what you do, and based on social competence, which is competence in understanding other people, and personal competence, which is understanding and managing your own emotions. If you can wrap all these together, you'll have the right toolkit and the right skill set to be able to get deals across the finish line. Here are a few of the best practices for managing your emotions in high stakes situations. One of the most critical things is having self-compassion. There's something called emotional perfectionism, which is this idea that you should always be in a happy, upbeat, or positive emotional state. That's actually very counterproductive. Acknowledging and understanding that, especially in high stakes situations, negative emotions are not only commonplace, but they're normal and they're a part of the human experience that can't be ignored. Just acknowledging that alone is a very powerful strategy and something that can really help you cope with difficult situations. Just the acknowledgement that, hey, this is a normal part of the process. I should be feeling challenging emotions right now. Having compassion for yourself helps you navigate those things. And there's a ton of scientific research that validates that self-compassion is a critical component of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is a skill set that can be trained and developed over time. This has been validated by a lot of scientific research. It's not something you're either born with or not. You can build the skill of emotional intelligence with the right tools and the right resources. The thing is, most of the strategies for developing emotional intelligence are boring and not that exciting. There's no one quick tip, there's no pill that you can take that can make you more emotionally intelligent. The things that build emotional intelligence are self-awareness, self-compassion. Journaling is an incredible strategy, journaling about your emotional state and what you're dealing with. Meditation is another very powerful strategy for cultivating self-awareness and awareness of your thoughts. And once you're aware of what you're thinking and feeling, it becomes a lot easier to see what other people are thinking and feeling, because you're seeing through the noise and you understand your own emotions. It's easier to understand what other people are going through as well. So journaling is very powerful. Meditation is very powerful. Things like exercise, getting enough sleep, eating well, self-care. These aren't exciting hot tips, and you probably weren't expecting these in a video about how to buy companies, but if you're doing these things and you're taking care of yourself, these are some of the most evidence-based strategies for improving your emotional well-being, cultivating a high emotional intelligence, and understanding the behavior and thought patterns of yourself and also other people. Once you develop those things, that is what you use as the toolkit to understand the dynamics of a deal, what you're thinking and feeling, how that's impacting the deal, what the other person is thinking and feeling, and how that's impacting the deal. Understanding your own emotional state is a critical component to navigating the complexities of buying and selling businesses. And once you build the tools to understand it, which are some of the most research validated things that you can do for yourself, again, meditation, sleep, eating right, working out, journaling, not crazy recommendations, but a lot of people just don't do them, but they can be hugely impactful, not only for your well-being, but also for your emotional skill sets that you can use to navigate super high stakes deals and million-dollar transactions. To recap this, there's a couple key psychological factors that you can use to buy businesses and close big, high-ticket M&A deals. One is rapport and understanding, building a bridge and a connection with the person you're doing the deal with. Two is using the skill sets of active listening so that you can understand the other party and what their goals and needs are and frame the deal around meeting their needs. Three is building emotional intelligence, not only awareness of yourself, but also awareness of other people. By developing those skill sets, you can navigate some of the most important and dangerous and risky psychological factors of doing deals. I would love to hear your thoughts and comments about high stakes deals that you've been a part of or any tough negotiation where understanding some of these psychological and emotional factors was critical to closing a deal or blowing it up. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And if you like this video, be sure to check this one out.